Invisible threads. The morning light filtered through the windows of Sophia Reyes's modest apartment as she carefully applied a thin layer of concealer over the dark circles under her eyes. Last night's shift at Bellini's had run until 2 a.m., and here she was at 6, preparing for her day job. She smoothed her dark hair into a neat bun and straightened her simple black uniform. "You can do this," she whispered to her reflection. "Just 3 more months of double shifts and you'll have enough for culinary school tuition." The bus ride to Medina took 40 minutes. Sophia used the time to review recipe notes on her worn tablet, fingers tracing ingredients lists for the French pastries she'd been perfecting. Cooking had been her escape since childhood, when she would help her grandmother transform simple ingredients into magical dishes that made everyone forget the cramped apartment and mounting bills. As the bus approached the waterfront mansions, Sophia tucked away her dreams and prepared for reality. Today was her first day at a new housekeeping position, the Blackwood estate, rumored to pay better than any other household in Seattle. The property was breathtaking. Glass and steel rising from manicured gardens with Lake Washington stretching behind it. Sophia was greeted by Mrs. Winters, the house manager, whose efficient demeanor matched the home's precise design. "Mr. Blackwood is rarely present, but when he is, he expects perfection," Mrs. Winters explained, leading Sophia through rooms larger than her entire apartment. "He works unusual hours and values his privacy above all else." By midday, Sophia's hands were raw from the special cleaning solutions used on the imported marble. While dusting the library, a stunning 2-story room with floor-to-ceiling shelves, she discovered a worn copy of a Julia Child cookbook, dog-eared and annotated in precise handwriting. "That's not part of your duties." The deep voice startled her. Sophia nearly dropped the book, turning to find a tall figure watching her from the doorway. Ethan Blackwood was younger than she'd expected, perhaps early 30s, with intense gray eyes and the kind of presence that seemed to compress the air in the room. "I'm sorry, Mr. Blackwood," she said, carefully returning the book. "You were reading my notes," he said, not a question, but an observation. His tone wasn't angry, merely factual. "I studied cooking," Sophia admitted. "I noticed your adjustments to the bechamel sauce. Adding nutmeg changes everything." Something flickered in his expression, perhaps surprise. For a moment, the imposing figure seemed almost human. "It does," he finally said. Then, as though catching himself in an unnecessary conversation, his expression cooled. "Mrs. Winters will show you the rest of your responsibilities." He disappeared as suddenly as he had arrived, leaving Sophia with the strange sensation that she'd glimpsed something few people ever saw, a crack in a carefully constructed facade. That evening, on her bus ride to Bellini's for her waitressing shift, Sophia found herself thinking about the lonely mansion and its equally solitary owner. The place felt like a museum, beautiful, pristine, and utterly lifeless. How strange that someone with everything could seem to have so little. Little did she know that Ethan Blackwood was thinking of her too, staring out at the darkening lake, the cookbook open beside him, wondering about the housekeeper who understood the importance of nutmeg. Unexpected defenders. 3 weeks passed in a rhythm of silent encounters. Sophia would glimpse Ethan in his home office during early morning hours or find evidence of his late-night presence, a half-empty scotch glass, scattered papers covered in complex diagrams. They rarely spoke beyond polite acknowledgments, yet she sensed him watching her when he thought she wouldn't notice. Tonight was Sophia's rare evening off, and her roommate had convinced her to accept a dinner invitation from Julian Parker, a regular customer at Bellini's who had been pursuing her for weeks. "You deserve a nice night out," her roommate insisted. lending Sophia a burgundy dress that hugged her curves just enough to make her feel beautiful without being uncomfortable. Julian had chosen As You Right, one of Seattle's most exclusive restaurants overlooking the bay. As the host led them to their table, Sophia felt out of place among the designer clothing and casual displays of wealth. "You look nice," Julian said, his gaze lingering too long on her neckline. "Different from your waitressing uniform." Sophia shifted uncomfortably. "Thank you for inviting me. The restaurant is beautiful." "Only the best," Julian smiled, ordering champagne without consulting her. "Though I usually bring clients here. It's refreshing to have more pleasant company." As dinner progressed, Julian's comments became increasingly condescending. He corrected her pronunciation of menu items, mockingly explained wine basics she already knew from her restaurant work, and asked questions that felt like traps. "So, housekeeping and waitressing," he said after extracting details about her jobs. "That must be fulfilling." "It's temporary," Sophia replied, dignity intact. "I'm saving for culinary school." Julian's laugh was sharp. "Darling, do you know how competitive that industry is? People with actual connections struggle. Maybe aim for something more realistic." Sophia's cheeks burned. "I should go." "Don't be sensitive." Julian reached for her hand. "I'm just being honest. Look around. This is a world built on pedigree and connections. Playing Cinderella is charming, but is there a problem here?" The familiar, deep voice sent a shock through Sophia. Standing beside their table was Ethan Blackwood, impeccably dressed in a charcoal suit, his expression unreadable except for the coldness in his eyes as they fixed on Julian. Julian straightened immediately. "Mr. Blackwood, what an honor. I'm Julian Parker from Westlake Investments. We actually analyzed your last startup's COIT." "I asked if there was a problem," Ethan interrupted, his attention shifting to Sophia. "Are you all right?" Before she could answer, Julian laughed nervously. "Just a dinner date, sir. Sophia works for you, I understand. Small world." "Yes," Ethan said, voice dangerously quiet. "She does exemplary work, unlike some who mistake cruelty for honesty." The table beside them went silent, attention drawn to the tension. Julian's smile faltered. "I meant no offense. Miss Reyes, I apologize for the interruption, but an urgent matter has arisen regarding tomorrow's menu planning. If you'd prefer to discuss it now..." The escape route was obvious, and Sophia grasped it with relief. "Of course, Mr. Blackwood." Standing, she gathered her purse, while Julian sputtered objections. Ethan placed a light hand at the small of her back, guiding her through the restaurant. The touch was brief, but protective, sending unexpected warmth through her body. Outside, his sleek Aston Martin waited. "You didn't have to do that," Sophia said, once they were inside the vehicle. "I know." His hands gripped the steering wheel. "Would you prefer I take you home or back to my house for an actual meal? Mrs. Torres made her paella tonight." Sophia looked at him in surprise. "You were at Azurite by coincidence?" "No," he admitted after a pause. "Mrs. Winters mentioned your date. I was concerned." "You were checking up on me?" She wasn't sure to whether be offended or touched. Ethan's jaw tightened. "Men like Julian Parker view people as commodities. I've sat through too many meetings with him to trust his intentions." The honesty disarmed her. "Paella sounds wonderful," she said softly. As they drove along the shimmering coastline, Sophia watched his profile against the passing lights. For the first time, Ethan Blackwood didn't seem untouchable, but human, complicated, and unexpectedly kind. Walls of glass. Dinner in Ethan's kitchen, not the formal dining room, became a turning point. Mrs. Torres's paella gave way to conversation that stretched past midnight, revealing shared passions for food, architecture, and obscure documentaries. Sophia discovered Ethan's dry humor and surprising knowledge of cooking techniques, while he seemed captivated by her determination and insight. The following weeks brought subtle changes. Fresh flowers appeared in the rooms Sophia tended. Ethan emerged from his office during her shifts, offering coffee or asking her opinion on restaurants he was considering for business meetings. She began leaving small culinary experiments, perfected Madeleine cookies or arancini balls with notes on preparation techniques. Yet invisible barriers remained. Sophia caught whispers from other staff, saw the questioning glances when Ethan requested she organize his charity gala menu instead of using his usual caterer. "You're crossing lines," Mrs. Winters warned one morning. "Mr. Blackwood has a certain position. People like us aren't part of that world." "We're just friendly," Sophia insisted, ignoring the ache those words created. The reality of their different worlds came into sharp focus when Sophia arrived early one morning to find Ethan entertaining breakfast guests, 3 elegantly dressed women and 2 men in tailored suits, all regarding her with dismissive curiosity when she entered the living room. "Ah, Sophia," Ethan said, his voice carrying a formality she hadn't heard in weeks. "Coffee for everyone, please." The casual command stung more than it should have. She nodded and retreated to the kitchen, hearing laughter behind her. "Your housekeeper is quite pretty, though you might want to establish better boundaries, darling. Claudia had the most awful experience with staff becoming attached." Ethan's response was inaudible, but Sophia's cheeks burned as she prepared the coffee service. When she returned, she kept her eyes lowered, placing everything with professional precision. "Thank you, that'll be all," Ethan said, not meeting her gaze. That afternoon, as Sophia folded laundry in the upstairs linen room, Ethan found her. "About this morning," he began. "No explanation needed, Mr. Blackwood," Sophia interrupted, maintaining formality. "I understand my position perfectly." "I don't think you do." His voice softened. "Those people are investors, not friends. The persona they expect, it's not me." "Then who are you?" she challenged, finally meeting his eyes, "because it seems like you live comfortably in both worlds while I belong in only one. That's not fair, isn't it?" She carefully placed the folded towels in the cabinet. "You rescued me from Julian Parker's condescension, yet you treated me exactly as he would have." Pain flashed across his features. "Sophia, I appreciate the job, Mr. Blackwood, but perhaps we should maintain proper employer-employee boundaries from now on." For a moment, he looked as though he might argue, reach for her, bridge the gap between them. Instead, he nodded once and left her alone with the clean linens and the scent of lavender that suddenly seemed too sweet to bear. That night, Sophia received a text message from an unknown number. "You were right. I apologize. E.B." She stared at the message for a long time before setting her phone aside without responding, unsure what response could possibly span the distance between their worlds. Vulnerability's edge. The following 2 weeks passed in uncomfortable formality. Ethan traveled frequently and, when home, retreated to his office. Sophia maintained her professional demeanor, ignoring the hollowness that had replaced their brief connection. She focused instead on her upcoming culinary school interview, testing recipes late into the night and refining her techniques. Then came the call that shattered everything. Her grandmother had suffered a severe stroke and was in critical condition. Sophia rushed to the hospital, forgetting her afternoon shift entirely. Hours blurred in the sterile hallways as doctors delivered increasingly grim prognoses. Her grandmother needed specialized care, treatments insurance wouldn't cover. She held the weathered hand that had taught her to fold empanadas and calculated impossible numbers in her head. Her savings wouldn't cover even a fraction of the costs. "Miss Reyes?" She looked up to find Ethan standing in the doorway of the hospital room, looking strangely out of place in his casual sweater and jeans. "How did you—" Mrs. Winters was concerned when you didn't arrive. His eyes moved to her grandmother's still form, monitors beeping steadily beside her. "I'm sorry." She couldn't maintain her walls. Not here, not now. Tears she'd been fighting spilled over. "The doctors say she needs surgery, specialized rehabilitation. I don't have enough." She hadn't meant to confess this, but exhaustion stripped away her pride. Ethan crossed the room, hesitating before sitting beside her. "Let me help." "I can't accept that." "Why not? Pride? Would your grandmother want you to refuse help she needs because it comes from me?" "You don't understand." Sophia looked away. "If I accept, what does that make me? Your charity case? Your employee who needed rescuing?" "It makes you human," he said simply. "Like all of us. Accepting help doesn't diminish your strength, Sophia." The use of her name, soft and intimate, broke something inside her. She leaned forward, shoulders shaking with silent sobs. After a moment, she felt his arm wrap tentatively around her. "I built my company from nothing," he said quietly, "but I had advantages. Education, connections through my late uncle. I tell myself I'm self-made, but that's only partially true. We all need help sometimes." They sat in silence, her grandmother's breathing the only sound. Finally, Sophia whispered, "Why do you care?" His fingers brushed hers. "Because in a world where I've trained myself to expect the worst from people, you continually prove me wrong. Your kindness, your passion, your integrity, they remind me of who I wanted to be before success made me forget." When she looked up, his expression was completely unguarded for the first time. Vulnerable, honest, afraid of rejection. Sophia realized with startling clarity that the distance between them had never been about wealth or status, but about fear. Her fear of being seen as less. His fear of being wanted only for what he possessed. That night, arrangements were made for her grandmother's care. Ethan stayed, bringing coffee and talking quietly with Sophia about her childhood, her grandmother's recipes, the dreams that had shaped her. When exhaustion finally claimed her, she fell asleep against his shoulder, his jacket draped around her like a promise. Hours later, she awoke to find him still there, watching over both her and her grandmother with quiet vigilance. In the sterile fluorescent light, all pretenses stripped away, Sophia finally saw him clearly, not as the billionaire or the employer, but simply as Ethan. A man who had forgotten how to let people in until she had accidentally shown him how. "Stay," she whispered, reaching for his hand. "As long as you need," he answered, and she knew he meant more than just that night.
Beyond boundaries. Autumn painted Seattle in amber and crimson as Sophia's grandmother slowly recovered. The Blackwood mansion transformed during those months. Laughter echoed through previously silent rooms, delicious aromas wafted from the kitchen where Sophia experimented with recipes, and Ethan's tense expressions gradually softened into genuine smiles. Their relationship evolved in quiet moments, Ethan helping Sophia prepare for culinary school interviews, Sophia challenging him to reconnect with the passion that had sparked his first business before success hardened him. They moved carefully, both aware of the complexities, the whispers, the raised eyebrows. "People will talk," Sophia said one evening as they walked along the lakefront, their hands occasionally brushing. "They'll say I targeted you for your money. Let them. Anyone who matters knows better." But doubts lingered. Sophia resigned from her housekeeping position, insisting on establishing herself independently. She enrolled in culinary school, refusing Ethan's offers to cover tuition, instead accepting a scholarship she'd earned on her own merit. Her grandmother moved into a comfortable rehabilitation center, expenses managed through a carefully negotiated arrangement where Sophia contributed what she could afford. October brought the night of Ethan's annual charity gala, Though no longer his employee, Sophia had agreed to help organize the menu, working alongside renowned chefs, who initially dismissed her until her expertise became undeniable. As guests in designer evening wear mingled through the transformed mansion, Sophia supervised from the kitchen, her chef whites a stark contrast to the glittering attire outside. "You should be out there," said one of the kitchen staff. "Everyone's talking about you and Mr. Blackwood." She smiled tightly, focusing on plating techniques. She belonged here, in the creative chaos of the kitchen, not navigating the treacherous waters of Seattle's elite. Later, as the event wound down, she slipped outside to the garden terrace for fresh air. The Seattle skyline twinkled across the lake, stars reflected in the dark water. "You're hiding," Ethan's voice came from behind her. She turned to find him approaching, bow tie loosened, champagne flutes in hand. "Not hiding, just taking a moment." He handed her a glass. "The governor called the food transcendent. The chef told him it was your menu." It was a team effort. "Sophia." His voice softened as he set down his glass and took hers, placing it aside. "When will you accept that you belong anywhere you choose to be?" "Old habits," she admitted. "The girl from Beacon Hill doesn't usually find herself at galas, and tech investors don't usually find themselves happiest in kitchen supply stores." His smile was warm as he took her hands. "Yet here we are. Here we are," she echoed, allowing herself to step closer. Ethan said carefully, "I've been thinking about that restaurant space on Madison Avenue. The one you mentioned would be perfect for a fusion concept." "It's being developed into condos," she reminded him. "Not anymore. The property became available last week." Sophia stilled. "Ethan, before you protest, it's an investment. With terms. You develop the concept, run the kitchen, build your reputation. I provide startup capital as a silent partner. Equal risk, equal reward." "Partners?" The word held multiple meanings, and they both knew it. "In everything, if you'll have me." His hands framed her face gently. "No more boundaries, no more separate worlds, just us, building something together." Under the stars, with Seattle spread before them, Sophia finally allowed herself to believe that the distance between their worlds had never been about external circumstances, but about the courage to cross invisible lines. She rose on tiptoes, her lips meeting his in a kiss that tasted of promise and possibility. 6 months later, Fusion opened its doors, a restaurant bridging culinary traditions just as its owners had bridged their lives. Ethan handled the business while Sophia created magic in the kitchen. Her grandmother, fully recovered, helped train staff in traditional techniques. On opening night, as critics and diners filled the space, Sophia paused in the doorway between kitchen and dining room. Ethan caught her eye from across the restaurant and raised his glass in a silent toast to boundaries crossed and walls dismantled, to the understanding that the most unexpected connections often become the most transformative. "Ready?" he mouthed. Sophia nodded, stepping confidently forward into their shared creation, no longer afraid of belonging in any world they chose to build together.